Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have back with me Alan Peterson. First of all, welcome back, Alan.
Thanks, Tom. Great to be here.
And we're here to talk about one of our both mutual passions, which is the MS 150.
Mm.
Could you remind our audience what is the MS 150, Alan?
Sure. Thanks for having me back, Tom. This was a great thing for me to talk about. The MS 150 in Texas, this is the 41st running of or riding of that event. It's a fundraiser for the National MS Society. There are 50 other MS bike rides in the US, but this is the biggest and has been, I think, from the get go. So it's been running since so the first MS 150 was in Minneapolis in 1980. Houston, Austin came along the next year and kind of took over. The bike MS events have raised 1.1 to 1.3 billion for MS research over the time that they've been running. So in those 40 some years, I guess there must have been some years where it didn't happen. I know COVID knocked out a couple for Texas, but that's the most significant fundraising thing that the MS Society has for supporting MS research.
We both are very passionate about road cycling, but you ride in the MS for a very personal reason as well. Could you tell us about that?
I do. Thanks for that lead in. Yeah, my mom had MS. She I guess, had first symptoms in about 1978 at the age of 50, which is really odd, kind of late for that onset. Diagnosed in 1984. At the time, she was told, do your physical therapy, stop smoking, stop drinking, good luck. There really wasn't anything in the way of pharmacological support for the disease. That's absolutely not the case. That 1.1 or 1.3 billion dollars has brought a lot of progress in treatment for MS. There are now 27 different disease modifying treatments available for use by the various forms of MS. My mom had primary progressive, which is you start with some symptoms and they get worse and worse and worse until you're debilitated and have dementia as well. But there are three other less severe types. All forms of MS are now treatable with these disease modifying treatments. None cure the disease yet. I say yet because there's a roadmap, a path of research that leads to a cure, they believe, very soon.
Could you tell our audience a little bit about the trek itself? There's actually two final destinations. Could you tell us about those?
Yeah, back when you and I were riding it at the same time, we always rode from Houston to Austin. So if you were from Austin, you took a bus to Houston in the morning or stayed over at the night, and you rode from Houston to LaGrange, camped out overnight, or stayed in a motel if you could find one, and then rode the next day from LaGrange to Austin. Several years ago, probably got it in my notes here somewhere, that changed as Austin began to fill up. As they asked us, or they asked MS Society at first to see if they could move the finish line out of town because it was just too much. It tied up all of Austin for most of Sunday, and it was just not what they wanted us to do anymore. So we tried a couple of years out at the Circuit of the Americas, out on the east side of town, out past the airport. Lovely venue, but it wasn't the vibe that the MS Society was looking for. And in 2020 was the first year we were supposed to finish in College Station. And of course, COVID caused that one to get canceled. And then 2021, we ended up with a rain out. But starting in 2022 and since then, there's been now a couple of paths. So instead of just Houston to Austin, as it was again years ago, it's now you can go from Houston to LaGrange on the first day, then LaGrange to College Station on the second day, or you can ride from Austin to LaGrange on the first day and LaGrange to College Station on the second day. So everything finishes at Kyle Field on the Texas A&M campus, which I just hate. But there's three different routes on day one from the two different places, so 6 different ways to do your day the first day, and then 3 different routes on the second day as well, using some permutation of those various choices. You can have a 70, what is it? You can have a 96 to 178 mile weekend, whatever you'd like.
So have you ever done the Austin to LaGrange first day?
Yes, I have.
And I have not done that, but I've done LaGrange to Austin way back in the day. Is it any easier coming from Austin to LaGrange? Because LaGrange to Austin, you're fighting it the whole way.
That I don't know if you remember the hill outside of Smithville.
Oh, yeah.
Where you get to the top of that thing and coming from the Houston direction towards Austin, you
Right.
think, boy, this is going to be fun. In fact, On that hill, my daughter and I rode a tandem, and we achieved a top speed that's probably classified, but it started with a 5 and ended with something like 8 miles per hour. And now going the other direction, you get to the bottom of the hill and stay. There's a different O that you use instead of oh my. It's a
I remember that hill because I made the mistake of looking at my speedometer and I was at 42.
mm,
And that was the last time I ever looked at a speedometer going down a hill. I just was
yeah.
too scared.
Yeah, no, you wait till the end at the ride and go look at the records and then say, what was I thinking? And then move on from there.
The Lagrange experience is really integral to the entire MS experience, but it's almost it is unique
Mm,
because in many ways it's like an army camp, except it's very passionate people. People are committed to biking, cycling. People are committed to the fight against MS, who are worn out from riding anywhere from 80 to 100 miles on
mhm.
day one, yet they're still pumped up from adrenaline. So, could you talk a little bit about your experience at
Sure.
LaGrange?
So the Lagrange thing, when you get there, of course, you've got to go find. In my case now, I have to go find my luggage and move it to the team tent since I'm not leaving from the place where the team leaves from. That's a new part of the thing. And then you go line up for a shower because after you've ridden, in my case, maybe I've been on the bike 6 hours and it's Texas and it's late spring, early summer. I'm ready for a shower first thing. And waiting around with other folks who are similarly tired out and interested in having a shower is fun. Then going and like in my case, I see people at the team tent that I haven't seen since the last year because I'm retired. I don't, these are some former coworkers. In fact, one of my old bosses is on the team. This year, there's a former VP that has just retired that I'll be chatting with as well. So a lot of camaraderie just in old coworker experience, but everywhere around you is people who like cycling, like you said, and have just participated in something that is intended to do good. And being around people who are trying to do good is a great way to spend a weekend.
Let me turn to you personally and what your fundraising efforts have meant for MS. Can we start off by asking, how did you do last year?
So last year I finished at number 115 out of some 6,000 fundraising cyclists. I'm really proud of how generous my friends, family, and former coworkers have been over the years, but the last 2 years have been just spectacular in that regard. In the so this is my 16th ride. In that 16 years, my accumulated fundraising total, sorry, my friends, former coworkers, and families total is about $87,000. I'm kind of a drop in the bucket compared to the 1.3 billion, but
You're,
it's
but you're a drop
I'm a drop and I'm in the bucket.
and you're in the bucket. Any numbers that you could share with us or any other information from the MS Society that they put out this year?
Of course, the plan is to try to recover from the COVID declines. Back when you and I were riding at the same time, the ride would fill up with 13,000 riders in a couple of days, right? It was really hot. That 13,000 is the limit for that TxDOT will allow the MS Society to run over that weekend. We run more about 6,000 now. So about half of the heyday of those rides. And I guess it was more like 10,000 back in 2018, 2019. About a third or more of the decline is since COVID. So we're kind of growing back from that. All of the funding, maybe 95% of the funding for the Texas Lone Star chapter of the MS Society comes from this event. So it's important for them that we get the ridership up, get the fundraising up so that they can continue to support the cause. But again, I said the Texas ride is the biggest of all of them in the US. There are, I have some numbers. There are 508 porta potties on the route. Really important for those of us who do find a way to drink enough while on the bike. You'll find that you need to stop eventually, and those are well taken care of. For those of us like me who have so many generous friends and family, if you're in the top 300 of fundraising, you'll find your name on a porta potty somewhere. It's a very, very great honor.
I
Uh,
did
I
not know
I
that.
can send you a photo of me standing next to my porta potty from next year,
Please
from
do.
last year. Yeah.
I'm going to incorporate that into your fundraising efforts.
A lot of people who know me think it's quite fitting that my name would be on a porta potty
The
for many reasons.
Could you talk a little bit about the sponsors? And I don't mean people like myself or your friends and family who might make a donation to an individual rider, but the corporations who not only put the teams together, but they may have a lunch or a breakfast or a rest stop along the way.
Yeah, so there are along every route, about every 10 to 15 miles is a rest stop, and those are manned. I'm sorry, those are peopled by volunteers from various organizations, corporations, school districts, churches. It's a real hodgepodge of folks that decide that's what they how they want to spend their weekend, and they are delightful people. Just the same thing. Right? How can you be around people who are trying to be doing good things and not feel good? And that's what happens, right? You get out there and you're in a line waiting for ice water being handed to you by somebody who's having a really sweaty, difficult day too, and we're all happy.
One of the more poignant things for me, having read, having rode several years, is the people with MS who will be along the route cheering you on. And you'll see them go from standing
Yeah,
to sitting
yeah,
to a wheelchair, but they're still out there supporting
yeah,
the riders.
yeah. And their families are out there with them, supporting their support, if you will, of the event, and that is really part of the whole experience. You highlighted why I got started. I've always had a love of cycling. It was part of my life from, I don't know, 5 years old or something. I was always either riding or taking a bike apart or putting a bike back together. It was just part of my life. But this connection to the folks who need help is really special. And you're right. I see the same folks. If I'm riding the same route, you're sort of going along at about mile 35 and you go, isn't it about time to see the family with the guy who plays his fiddle on the back of his brush hog? Oh, yep, there he is. And his mom is now in a wheelchair. She used to be in a lawn chair, those kinds of things. It's definitely part of the experience.
So when I rode, we finished in on 15th Street in Austin next to
Mhm.
the Capitol. And it was always just a huge joy for me to be able to ride through Austin, through at least near campus, and ride into the finish line. Is that still your experience when you ride into Kyle Field?
At that point, when I get kind of the campus is in sight, and I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but when you get out to North Zulch or Snook, there's not a lot of scenery, but you get a little bit closer and you can sort of see Kyle Field, the lights and et cetera on the horizon. And yeah, I don't care how tired you are, when you get to that spot, you get a little boost of energy and start feeling like I can do this. And the first time we rode to College Station, they were actually doing some construction on Kyle Field, and so they let us ride in the ramp onto the track around Kyle Field. So we took a lap around Kyle Field. All the spectators were in the stadium seats and applauding. That was a very special feeling. Now we finished beside the stadium. It's the same kind of atmosphere as the Austin was, right? Lots and lots of hooting and hollering and cowbells and balloons and people.
Well, Alan, if anyone wanted more information on the MS 150 or to make a donation to you or to really anyone to help support this great cause, how could they do?
I do have a QR code, which you probably won't be able to pick up here, but I'll certainly extend it to you so that you can include it in the show notes. Particular link to get to my donation page is also included there. It's a very lengthy deal. It wouldn't be appropriate to try to get people to write it down, but I'll make sure you have that. And yeah, love the support as always. I appreciate talking with you about the event and the support that I feel from you.
Like I said, it's our joint love of cycling, our joint passion for the fight against MS, even if I don't get to cycle as much as I would like to anymore. And I wanted to thank you again for riding, for supporting MS, and for coming down and visiting with us today.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you.